morning, my library friends. This is week 2 of our virtual winter story time. And today I'm going to share a story with you called The Nutcracker. This is a story that you might be familiar with. There's a lot of different versions, but it's most well known as a ballet. You might have seen it before. They usually perform it every year around Christmas time in both Boston and Worcester. And you can hear some of the music playing in the background. There's so many different books about the Nutcracker, but this is the one that I'm going to share with you today. I really like the illustrations in this one, and it's kind of a summary of the Nutcracker, so it won't be quite as long, and the illustrations are beautiful. So we'll start with reading The Nutcracker. It was Christmas Eve, and Clara and her little brother, Fritz, were bursting with excitement. The house smelled of spiced gingerbread. Presents were piled high beneath the tree, and the light of 100 glowing candles danced in the windows. As the grandfather clock struck 6, there was a knock at the door. Clara's godfather, Dr. Drosselmeyer, swept in from the snow, producing gifts as if by magic, toy soldiers for Fritz, and for Clara, the most wonderful wooden nutcracker, shaped like a prince, with a cherry-red coat and indigo eyes. Fritz eyed the nutcracker enviously. "That's a boy's toy," he said, and he snatched it and threw it to the ground. There was a sickening crack. Clara cradled the broken nutcracker, angry tears in her eyes. "Please, Dr. Drosselmeyer, can you fix him?" Her godfather looked at her thoughtfully. "Leave him under the tree tonight," he said. "He'll be good as new by morning." Just before midnight, Clara woke with a start. "My nutcracker," she said, remembering. "I wonder if he's fixed yet." By the light of the moon, she slipped out of bed slowly, softly tiptoed downstairs to find her wooden prince. The house was silent apart from the creaking of the stairs and the tick, tick, tick of the grandfather clock. But as Clara stepped into the hallway, there was a deafening dong. The clock chimed the first stroke of midnight, and the house began to shake. Right before her eyes, the Christmas tree began to bristle and creak and grow, taller and taller and taller still. She looked for her nutcracker, but he was nowhere to be seen. Then she heard a rustling and scuttling coming from upstairs. She looked up, and 1,000 pairs of gleaming eyes glared back at her. Mice! But these were not ordinary mice. They were almost as big as Clara, tumbling down the staircase like a whiskery, squeaking waterfall. Leading the charge was the fearsome Mouse King, with a golden crown and a flashing silver sword. "Get the sweets," he ordered, and the mice scuttled to every corner of the room. "I'll take care of the girl." "Not so fast," came a voice. Clara turned to see her nutcracker was now as tall as the Mouse King. He stood with his wooden arms crossed at the head of an army. Behind him were toy soldiers, gingerbread men and dolls assembled in neat rows, ready to fight. "Attention!" he cried, and his soldiers snapped their heels together. "Ready? Forward, march!" The Nutcracker's army stamped toward the mice. "Hup, 2, 3, 4. Clara held her breath as the soldiers brandished their swords, and the mice gnashed their teeth. But suddenly the Mouse King knocked the Nutcracker's sword from his hand. "No!" cried Clara. How could she save him? In desperation, she took off her slipper and hurled it at the Mouse King as hard as she could. Pages are sticking here. Hang on. As if by magic, all the mice disappeared. Standing before Clara was a handsome prince. With a cherry red coat and indigo eyes, her Nutcracker had come to life. "You saved me," he said, "not just from the Mouse King, from a terrible curse, too. I would have been wooden forever if you hadn't risked your life for me. Now will you do me the honor of accompanying me to my home, the Land of Sweets?" "Oh, yes, please," said Clara. They traveled by swan over gold-flecked oceans and silver-edged cities. Clara held her breath, her eyes wide, as she gazed at the twinkling lights far below. Snowflakes pirouetted past. The prince caught one and gave it to Clara. "Try it," he said. Clara let the snowflake dissolve on her tongue. Rosebuds and raspberries," she said. "Mine is peppermint and honey," said the prince. "Every snowflake tastes unique." The swan drifted gently down toward gingerbread rooftops. "Welcome to the Land of Sweets," said the prince. Clara gazed around her in amazement. Lollipops grew in the flower beds, lemonade flowed from the fountains, and a sherbet path twisted off into marshmallow mountains. "Eat anything you would like," said the prince. "It's all delicious." Clara tried a blade of grass. It tasted of lime and mint and lazy summer afternoons. "Follow me," said the prince, leading her across the Blueberry River. Rising up before them was a wafer palace, topped with marzipan turrets. "This is where I live," said the prince, "and you are my guest of honor." As they crossed the candy cane bridge, a fairy in a spun sugar dress came out to greet them. "How do you do, Clara?" she said. "I am the Sugar Plum Fairy. Come quickly, you're late for the ball." And here's a little surprise. It's a pop-up. Look how beautiful this is. In the Land of Sweets. Clara and the prince waltzed until the sun peeped out above cotton candy clouds and turned the sky 1,000 shades of pink. Then Clara knew it was time for her to go home. As the prince helped her onto the swan's soft back, she asked, "Will I ever see you again?" But before he could answer, she had fallen fast asleep. When Clara awoke, she found herself beneath the Christmas tree, her wooden Nutcracker in her arms. He was as good as new, but no longer a prince. What a wonderful dream, she thought. But she could still taste lime and mint. As the grandfather clock struck 6, she heard a loud knock. It was Dr. Drosselmeyer. "Merry Christmas!" he cried. "I've brought someone to meet you, Clara. This is my nephew." Standing before Clara was a young man with a cherry red coat and indigo eyes. He was handsome enough to be a prince. And that's the end. So that's kind of a short story of the Nutcracker. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you get a chance, maybe you can ask your grown-up to look up the ballet of the Nutcracker and at least watch some, like the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy is one of my favorites. So we'll see you next week. Bye.
Hi, everybody. It's Mr. McDonough. Thank you, Miss Kayla. That was a great story. I am going to read you a story, too, but first I wanted to show you some Lego. We're going to get ready to put in a Lego holiday window. So one of the windows is going to have some Lego holiday pieces. Here is the Gingerbread House, which I really like. It has candy along the side. Some candy on the house, just like you would make in your own gingerbread house, which I hope you're making some gingerbread houses. So we're going to have this in the window starting on December 12th, which is Saturday. If you're interested, I am asking for people to build pieces for me. I'm showing you, if you want to build me a Yeti, this is a Yeti. Yeti are just silly. Yeti Sasquatch. So we're going to make it a Yeti holiday. So if you want to build something, just email us at galefreekids@gmail.com when you're finished, and we'll come down and get it when the library's open, and we'll put it in the window. So, but that's the Lego window, but I'm here to read you a story. So I'm going to read you Bear Stays Up for Christmas by Karma Wilson. Now, why do we talk about bears so much in the winter? Some of you know, right? Bears hibernate in the winter. They sleep all winter. Their heartbeat gets really, really slow. Their breathing goes really, really slowly. And they just sleep all winter because there's not enough food for bears, so they fatten up in the fall. They eat everything they can get their hands on. And then they get nice and fat, and then they fall asleep. And they rarely wake up in the winter. So then there are so many stories we write about bears hibernating. So this one's called Bear Stays Up for Christmas. What's he doing staying up? Okay, well, here he is. So Bear is sleeping in his cave right now, out in the snowy woods. Bear stays up for Christmas. Here it is. The day before Christmas, snuggled on his floor, Bear sleeps soundly with a great big snore. Dear Bear, get up! Mouse shouts in his ear. We won't let you sleep through Christmas this year. His friends are all there, gathered in his lair, and the bear wakes up. He's probably a little groggy. He stands with a stretch and a great big sigh. I hope I can make it. I do want to try. Don't worry, squeaks Mouse. Hare says, it's all right. We'll keep you busy all day and all night. He starts to lie down, but his friends all frown. So the bear stays up. Come on, said Badger. Time to follow me in Pine Grove Glen. There's a fine Christmas tree. So they stomp through the woods and they tromp down the track. They hoist up the tree onto Bear's big back. I guess they didn't have a car, so they put it on Bear's back. He plods very slowly as they trudge through the snow. But the bear stays up. Back at the cave, Gopher brews mint tea, and Mole pops corn to string upon the tree. Raven and Wren bring fresh fruitcake. The friends do their best to keep the bear awake. You see the crow is stirring the pot to make his fruitcake. His shoulder starts to stoop, and his eyelids droop, but the bear stays up. You've probably had those moments where you really are forcing yourself to stay awake when you really just want to close your eyes and sleep. Well, that's what the bear's feeling. They hang up their stockings by warm firelight and hum Christmas songs like "Oh Holy Night." They cuddle and sing as they wait for the sun. Look how cozy that looks. But soon, all the voices fade to just one. A bright star glows while his good friend doze. But the bear stays up. Look at that. All of his friends are asleep. How silly that they're sleeping. How silly. Bear giggles and grins. He works and he raps. He bustles and bakes while everyone naps. He piles up presents under the tree, but who's at the doorway? Bear doesn't see. He toils all night until the sun rises, making his friends their Christmas surprises. Just before dawn, he lets out a yawn, but he still stays up. When Christmas arrives, so lovely and white, Bear's friends awake to a glorious sight. Presents and goodies are piled up tall. I stayed up, said Bear, just to share with you all. As his friends shout with glee, Bear lies by the tree, but he still stays up. Wren flies to the stockings and tweets out a cheer. Besides our Bear's presents, Santa was here. When all gifts are open, there's one last surprise. Badger shows Bear a quilt, just his size. Aw, that's such a nice present. Bear snuggles up tight and mutters, "Good night." And the bear falls asleep. His friends tidy up and slip from the lair. They whisper, "Sweet dreams. Merry Christmas, dear Bear." The end. Well, we'll see you next week. Hope you're having good holidays. Bye.